At first glance, it's just a man with a sailor. But look closer. Those shackles were locked on his leg for 3 agonizing years. Rescued in 1907 by the HMS Sphinx, this haunting photo reveals the inescapable cruelty of slavery. A single image capturing a world where freedom was stolen, and survival was a fight against unimaginable odds. And this is just the beginning. These rare images expose the darkest truths of slavery and the untold stories of survival that history tried to forget. What if you were forced to grow up without a childhood? This Civil War-era photo of John, a young enslaved boy, barefoot and forlorn on a barrel, alongside another child in rags, brings that haunting question to life. By 1920, 88% of black children under 14 were enslaved, enduring brutal labor. Their resilience amid unimaginable cruelty is a powerful testament to human strength. Keep watching for even more shocking stories. A chilling 1860 photo captures enslaved men carrying a litter through Bahia, Brazil. At first, they seem well-dressed, but their bare feet reveal their bondage. Brazil, the last country in the Americas to abolish slavery in 1888, left behind a vast photographic archive. This image underscores a grim truth. Urban slaves faced exploitation just as cruel as plantation laborers. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Keep watching. This 1868 image shows East African captives rescued by HMS Daphnis from an Arab slave ship. Cramped on the deck, survivors bore scars of the Middle Passage. British anti-slavery efforts freed them, yet their branded bodies revealed their commodification. While this photo highlights the brutality of the transatlantic slave trade, slavery's horrors didn't end there. In fact, even during World War II, slavery took on a shocking new form. A photo of Aturi American POWs reveals their suffering under Japanese enslavement. Around 12,000 POWs were forced into brutal labor, many dying from starvation and mistreatment. Companies like Mitsubishi exploited these men in mines and factories. This image highlights the inhumanity of wartime slavery and reminds us to confront the lingering injustices of history. An inspiring 1916 photo shows 4 African-American women, all over 100, attending the former slave convention. These activists, born into slavery, fought tirelessly for civil rights and reparations. The convention served as a platform for progress, reflecting resilience against systemic injustice. This image symbolizes hope, unity, and the enduring fight for equality, even decades after emancipation. A disturbing 1899 photo depicts Selknam natives en route to Europe for human zoos. Forced to perform daily, they were treated as curiosities rather than humans. Many didn't survive the journey. This image highlights a shocking practice that dehumanized entire communities. It serves as a solemn reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty and the need for compassion. An 1850 daguerreotype of Renty Taylor and his daughter Delia shows the dehumanization of slavery. Forced to pose nude for a Harvard professor's pseudoscientific study, their bodies were commodified to justify racist ideologies. These haunting images compel us to confront slavery's atrocities and the misuse of science to uphold white supremacy. If you want to see more of this, keep watching. An 1860 photo depicts the Wildfire, a U.S. slave ship carrying 510 captives. Many died during the voyage, their bodies branded as property. Rescued by the U.S. Navy, survivors endured unimaginable suffering. This image captures the physical and emotional scars of the Middle Passage and reminds us of slavery's enduring legacy. Known as Whipped Peter, this photo reveals the shocking brutality enslaved people endured. Gordon's back is covered with scars from countless lashings, highlighting the cruel punishment used to maintain control. This image became a powerful symbol of abolitionist movements, showing the inhumanity of slavery and the resilience of those who survived such unimaginable suffering. The auction block, a cold stone platform, was where enslaved individuals were sold like property. Families were torn apart as bidders competed for human lives. This image symbolizes the dehumanization at the heart of slavery, where profit overshadowed humanity. The remnants of these blocks are haunting reminders of this cruelty. Keep watching because this next photo will blow your mind. This photograph shows barefoot children, recently freed, standing in tattered clothes. Their gaunt faces and hollow eyes reveal the hardships endured. While emancipation offered hope, these children faced an uncertain future. The photo highlights the enduring impact of slavery on even the youngest, capturing a mix of resilience and the lingering scars of a cruel system. A metal collar fitted with spikes prevented enslaved people from escaping or hiding. It was an instrument of control, designed to instill fear and maintain dominance. This device highlights the extreme measures used to dehumanize individuals. The cruelty embodied by such objects serves as a grim reminder of the oppressive practices that defined slavery. Branding irons, heated until red hot, were used to mark enslaved people like livestock. These tools symbolize the reduction of human beings to property. Branding left physical and psychological scars, serving as a permanent reminder of ownership. This chilling image forces us to confront the depths of dehumanization. You don't want to miss what's coming next. A group of African men, shackled and awaiting transport to slave ships, is a harrowing sight. Chains symbolized loss of freedom and humanity, marking the start of a brutal journey across the Atlantic. This photograph captures the grim reality of the transatlantic slave trade, where millions were forcibly removed from their homelands and subjected to unimaginable suffering. A slave coffle was a line of enslaved individuals chained together and marched long distances. This image captures men, women, and children walking in forced submission. Often sold to distant markets, they faced separation from families and communities. The sight of these chained marches served as a public display of power and control over their lives. A photograph of a young boy standing on an auction platform, surrounded by bidders, epitomizes the cruelty of child slavery. Sold into servitude, children like him faced lifelong separation from families and brutal labor. This image reflects the heartbreaking reality of children being commodified, their innocence stolen in the pursuit of profit. The cramped, squalid lower decks of slave ships, depicted in drawings and early photographs, reveal the inhumane conditions of the Middle Passage. Hundreds were packed together, suffering from disease, malnutrition, and abuse. Many never survived the journey. While these images showcase collective suffering, the story of a single enslaved mother and her child reveals an even more personal tragedy. A mother holding her child, both in tattered clothes, stares into the camera. Their eyes reflect despair and uncertainty. This image speaks to the generational trauma of slavery, where even the bond between parent and child was not safe from exploitation. The resilience of these individuals amid such hardship is both haunting and inspiring. Historical posters offering rewards for runaway slaves provide chilling insight into the system's cruelty. These advertisements listed detailed physical descriptions, treating people like property to be recovered. The desperation of enslaved individuals to escape and the lengths to which slaveholders went to maintain control highlight the pervasive and oppressive nature of slavery. Frederick Douglass's defiant gaze in his portraits embodies the resilience and strength of the enslaved. An escaped slave turned abolitionist leader, Douglass used his image as a powerful tool to challenge stereotypes. These photographs remind us of the dignity and humanity of those who fought against the dehumanization of slavery and sought justice. A photo of a punishment post, where enslaved people were tied for whipping, illustrates the violence used to enforce submission. Public displays of such punishment instilled fear and reinforced control. This haunting image captures the brutal methods plantation owners used to dehumanize and exploit enslaved individuals. What you see next, they won't believe your eyes. Excavated burial sites reveal the resting places of enslaved individuals denied proper burials. Often buried in unmarked graves, Their lives and stories were erased. These sites, now preserved as historical records, highlight the systemic dehumanization of slavery and the enduring impact of this cruel institution on generations of people. A photo of the cramped attic where Harriet Jacobs hid for 7 years reveals the lengths enslaved individuals went to escape oppression. Jacobs, who wrote about her experience in the incidents in the life of a slave girl, lived in constant fear of discovery. This space symbolizes both the horrors of slavery and the courage of those who resisted. A haunting image of one of the largest auction houses in Virginia reveals the epicenter of the slave trade. Thousands of lives were bought and sold within its walls, with families torn apart forever. While these auction houses symbolize the systematic dehumanization of slavery, the next story reveals the enduring fight for freedom and justice. Keep watching. Freedmen celebrating Emancipation Parade through Richmond, their faces a mix of hope and lingering pain. While emancipation marked a pivotal moment, it didn't erase the trauma of enslavement. This photograph captures the resilience of those newly freed and their determination to build a future despite the shadows of their past. Photos of dilapidated slave cabins reveal the living conditions endured by enslaved people. Cramped, poorly built, and lacking basic amenities, these homes symbolize the systemic neglect and exploitation of their inhabitants. The contrast between these cabins and the grand plantation houses they supported underscores the profound inequalities of slavery. An image of enslaved men being branded with hot irons reveals the horrifying methods used to dehumanize them. Branding was a permanent mark of ownership, stripping individuals of their autonomy. This brutal practice reduced human beings to mere commodities. You may think we are there already, but no, there is more to come. At Fort Jesus, Kenya, iron chains unearthed from the ruins reveal the brutal realities of the East African slave trade. These shackles were used to restrain captives before they were transported to markets. The rusted links serve as a haunting reminder of the millions forced into servitude, their freedom stolen for the sake of profit. This heartbreaking photo captures a young child shackled at the ankles, their innocence betrayed by the cruelty of slavery. Children were not spared from exploitation, often forced to endure the same brutal conditions as adults. This image symbolizes the depths of inhumanity and the tragic loss of childhood under a system of oppression. Auction posters advertising enslaved families for sale highlight the dehumanizing nature of slavery. These documents often resulted in heartbreaking separations, with parents sold apart from their children. Such posters reduced human lives to mere commodities, showcasing the systemic cruelty of a practice that prioritized profit over the bonds of love and kinship. The crumbling remains of Kunta Kinte Island, formerly James Island, in Gambia, are a chilling testament to the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. As a major slave trading outpost, it witnessed the departure of countless Africans torn from their homeland. These ruins stand as a reminder of resilience. If you already hated this one, wait for what's to come. The Zong tragedy reveals unimaginable cruelty. 130 enslaved Africans were thrown overboard to claim insurance money. This gruesome act, documented in court records, epitomizes the commodification of human lives. The Zong became a symbol of abolitionist movements, forcing the world to confront the inhumanity of treating people as property. Ledger books from Angola plantations list enslaved individuals as if they were inventory, age, skills, and value reduced to cold statistics. These records offer a stark reminder of the systemic dehumanization that defined slavery. They expose how plantation owners commodified human lives, treating people as tools for labor and profit. In Brazil, the last country in the Americas to abolish slavery, rusted iron chains and collars reveal the brutal tools used to control enslaved people. These artifacts are chilling symbols of oppression, showcasing how individuals were restrained and dehumanized. They remind us of a painful history that should never be forgotten. Photographs from the Congo Free State reveal the horrors inflicted under King Leopold II's regime. Enslaved workers, including children, were mutilated for failing to meet rubber quotas. These images expose the brutality of colonial exploitation and its devastating impact on African communities. If you find this as horrible as I do, keep watching because what comes next is even more shocking. The remains of the Clotilda, the last known U.S. slave ship, represent the persistence of illegal slavery. In 1860, it smuggled Africans to Alabama, defying abolition laws. The ship's discovery reminds us of the enduring horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the resilience of those forced into servitude. Portraits of freed individuals taken after the Civil War show resilience amidst hardship. Dressed in worn clothing, their expressions reflect trauma and hope. These photos document the strength of those who survived slavery and their determination to rebuild their lives in the face of systemic racism and ongoing inequality. This haunting image captures the aftermath of a failed slave rebellion, with bodies left as a warning to others. Such brutality was used to suppress resistance and instill fear among the enslaved. Despite these horrors, many rebellions showcased the courage of those who fought oppression. What is your opinion about this photo? Let us know in the comments. This image shows freed Africans aboard HMS Victory, rescued from slavers by the British Navy. Packed together but alive, they symbolize resilience in the face of unimaginable suffering. Their liberation marked a pivotal moment in abolitionist efforts, though millions of others were not as fortunate. The photo highlights both humanity's cruelty and the fight for freedom. Iron masks and shackles were torturous tools of control, designed to prevent enslaved people from speaking, eating, or escaping. These cruel devices reveal the extent of dehumanization endured. Such instruments of oppression reflect how enslaved individuals were reduced to property, their basic rights stripped away in the name of profit and power. A bustling slave market in Zanzibar reveals the stark reality of human trafficking in East Africa. Men, women, and children were sold into lives of servitude. The image captures the chilling commodification of human lives, where entire families were bartered like goods. This haunting scene is a grim reminder of slavery's global scale. Keep watching, because what comes next will surprise you. This unsettling photograph depicts enslaved children laboring under the watchful eye of a cruel overseer. Stripped of their childhoods, these children endured long hours and harsh punishments. Their expressions reflect the fear and exhaustion that define their lives. This image underscores the inhumanity of slavery and the exploitation of even the youngest. Barracoons were holding pens where enslaved Africans were confined before being transported across the Atlantic. This image shows captives crowded into makeshift structures, waiting for a fate they could not escape. The squalid conditions and loss of freedom highlight the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade, where human lives were treated as mere cargo. This heartbreaking image depicts enslaved women shackled together, forced to march long distances. Their expressions reveal exhaustion and despair. Women faced not only grueling labor, but also physical and sexual abuse. This photograph symbolizes the compounded suffering of female captives and the relentless cruelty of the system that enslaved them. A close-up of a whip used by overseers reveals the brutal enforcement of slavery. This instrument of terror was used to instill fear and ensure submission. The scars it left on bodies and spirits symbolized oppression at its most violent. While the whip enforced control, the auctioneer's hammer finalized the commodification of human lives. The auctioneer's hammer, used to finalize sales of enslaved individuals, represents the cold efficiency of the slave trade. Each strike of the hammer separated families and commodified human lives. This haunting image reflects the dehumanizing nature of the auction process, where profit mattered more than humanity. A photo of a recaptured enslaved person illustrates the high risks of seeking freedom. Runaways often faced brutal punishment or death upon return. This image captures the desperation for liberty and the systemic cruelty that sought to deny it. It stands as a testament to the bravery of those who dared to escape. This photograph shows enslaved individuals working in a sugar mill, enduring back-breaking labor under dangerous conditions. Sugar plantations were notorious for their grueling workloads and high mortality rates. This image highlights the immense physical toll of slavery and the profits built on the suffering of countless human beings. A chilling image depicts an East African slave caravan en route to Zanzibar markets. Chained together, captives trudged long distances under harsh conditions, with many dying along the way. This photograph exposes the brutality of the East African slave trade and the resilience of those who endured. What did you think of this photo? Let us know in the comments. Metal tags worn by enslaved workers in Charleston identified their owners and reinforced their lack of autonomy. These tags were a constant reminder of their commodification. This photograph highlights how every aspect of an enslaved person's life was controlled and tracked, stripping them of identity and humanity. This stark image of a whipping post in Georgia illustrates the public punishment enslaved people endured. Tied to these posts, they suffered brutal beatings designed to instill fear and enforce submission. The post itself stands as a chilling reminder of the systemic violence that upheld the institution of slavery. A family, recently freed, poses in shabby clothing, their faces a mix of resilience and uncertainty. This portrait captures the struggle to rebuild lives after emancipation, with many facing systemic racism and economic hardship. The image symbolizes both the hope of freedom and the lasting scars of slavery. Diagrams of the La Amistad des Hold reveal the cramped, dehumanizing spaces where enslaved Africans were confined. This infamous ship became the site of a rebellion that challenged slavery in court, showcasing the courage of those who fought for freedom. You will be amazed at what photo will come next. A photograph of enslaved individuals picking cotton captures the relentless toil demanded under the blistering sun. The grueling work in cotton fields was central to the Southern economy, built on the backs of enslaved people. This image underscores the exploitation and suffering that fueled immense profits. Photographs from Cuban sugar plantations reveal enslaved workers laboring in harsh conditions. From cutting cane to processing sugar, they endured long hours and severe punishments. This image is a sobering reminder of the immense suffering behind one of the most profitable crops of the colonial era. Chains and tools recovered from sunken slave ships reveal the horrors of the Middle Passage. These artifacts bear witness to the inhumanity of transporting millions across the Atlantic in horrific conditions. They serve as a stark reminder of the resilience of those who survived and the countless lives lost. A photograph of a slave auctioneer's office highlights the cold, transactional nature of slavery. Within these walls, human lives were bought and sold as property, tearing families apart. This image is a haunting reminder of the suffering caused by these institutions. However, the story doesn't end there. Freedom brought its own challenges, as seen in the Freedmen's Bureau School. This rare photo shows children of freed slaves attending a Freedmen's Bureau School. Education offered hope for a better future, but systemic racism created many barriers. This image represents the resilience of those seeking progress and the enduring fight for equality in the shadow of slavery's legacy. An unsettling image shows enslaved children tied to trees as punishment, their expressions a mix of fear and resignation. This practice was used to discipline even the youngest, revealing the relentless cruelty endured by enslaved families. Shackles found at the Cape Coast Castle in Ghana, a key outpost in the transatlantic slave trade, showcase the brutal methods used to control captives before their voyage. These rusted chains are chilling reminders of stolen freedom. This infamous diagram details the layout of the slave ship of Brooks, depicting how enslaved Africans were crammed into tiny spaces. Each figure represents a life dehumanized and commodified, reducing people to mere cargo. A photo from Haiti shows enslaved individuals executed for resisting oppression. Their deaths became enduring symbols of rebellion, highlighting their bravery in the face of tyranny. However, the brutality of their punishment underscores the devastating cost of defiance. We're almost at the end, but be sure to keep watching, because you don't want to miss this one. The slave bell in Barbados was rung to signal the start and end of grueling workdays for enslaved individuals. A photograph of this bell highlights the structured oppression of plantation life, where every moment was controlled. Photos of underground tunnels in Zanzibar reveal the harrowing paths enslaved people were forced to take before being shipped away. These dark, cramped spaces symbolize the dehumanizing process of preparing individuals for lives of servitude. A heartbreaking image shows enslaved families being separated at an auction block. Parents clutch their children, knowing they may never see them again. This photo captures the emotional devastation of slavery's systemic cruelty. An illustrated guide shows the branding process used on enslaved individuals. The clinical depiction of this inhumane act emphasizes the lengths to which slave owners went to claim ownership and dehumanize those in their control. A rare photograph of enslaved individuals working on an indigo plantation reveals their exhaustion and despair. The backbreaking labor involved in harvesting this crop was another example of the physical toll of slavery. A photo of a dilapidated slave barracks in Louisiana illustrates the cramped, unsanitary living conditions enslaved people endured. These structures housed multiple families in inhumane conditions, underscoring the daily hardships faced by the enslaved. These images confront us with slavery's darkest chapters, haunting reminders of oppression and resilience. By reflecting on these lessons, we can commit to dismantling injustice. Like, comment, and subscribe to continue exploring history's untold truths.